Good afternoon. My name is Bharath. I'm a head of customer engineering here at Niveus Solutions. So I'll be a moderator for today. And let me also give you a quick introduction to the two other panelists that we have today. One is Mr. Omkar, who's a senior solution architect within the infra modernization delivery team. And we also have Suhan Shetty, who's the senior customer engineer here at Niveus Solutions, right? And both of them come with a rich background of doing a lot of migrations, helping in the infrastructure and application modernizations, and also a lot of experience with implementing hybrid as well as multi-cloud, right? So coming back to the topic for today, right? So when you say digitization or modernization, right? Your strategy is not complete if you do not have a hybrid or a multi-cloud as a part of it, right? Whatever you're modernizing, whatever you're digitizing, whether it's the infrastructure, whether it's application, whether it's data, if there are no components of or even the strategy for a interesting hybrid as well as multi, then I would say that your digitization strategy is incomplete, right? So that brings us to the first question. We can start with the basics here. So what is it such a important concept or a component of the whole digitization strategy? So I would like to now, invite Suhan, if you could give us some background around why this is such an important a thing to be considered, even when you're putting your strategy together, and then go ahead into the implementation part of it.
Sure, Bharat. I'll keep it crisp. So when you start off your journey, when you start an application, you start your journey like how you move from monolith to microservices. We have seen a lot of customers starting the journey with a given cloud, right? So that's a great to start. But what we've also seen here is a lot of our customers who start their application journey eventually realize that there's some sort of a vendor lock-in happening, right? So tomorrow, if they get a better offer or a better spend or credits from other clouds, they're always stuck to there are a lot of bigger changes to have to do there, right? So now how do we immediately the second question they want to say is, how can I keep my application as agnostic as possible, and how can I have my journey happening on all clouds possible at a similar time, right? Now that is where we have seen a great fit into a multi-cloud for a digital native company, whereas for an enterprise they've always started their journey from mostly from an on-premises perspective, right? So now what happens is in on-premises, the network, the servers and applications, the VMs, all of these, the entire infrastructure is a variable component. So that is where they start looking cloud as an option, which enables them to have this journey where they have more predictable, stronger network, like cloud, like GCP, so on and so forth. Now, how do we have to shift that? I can get the best of both the worlds. I can take my OPEX or my CAPEX, which is already spent on premises, also have the best class of services from cloud. Now, that is where they start looking at a hybrid journey and also eventually a multi-cloud journey. So we have seen this typical nature coming up really strong this time. And with the corona also happening, there's a lot of focus on getting their infrastructure as much cloud agnostic as possible. And that's where a great fit they see for multi-cloud and a hybrid cloud environment today.
Absolutely. I think bang on, right? Like you said, nobody wants to have a single vendor lock-in, right? Whether they're hosting their workloads or even agnostic of the underlying infrastructure is something what I think most of the clients that we work with are also looking at. So that club together to get the best of all the worlds, best fitment and the agility is where I feel hybrid and multi-cloud come into play, right? So let me bring in Omkar here, right? So Omkar, in your experience, what have you seen that once a typical hybrid or a multi-cloud strategy is a part of your digitization, what are the typical challenges that come to your mind? Because while I have been interacting, one is of course the mindset of the people, right? Why should we even adopt this? Let's say a cloud provider A is giving me the best of everything. Why should even I look at having another cloud, or why should I even still have something on-prem or things like that? Next is the technical challenges, and of course the dependency or the integrations or the legacy systems which we have, right? How are we going to manage those if we end up having a multi-cloud strategy? I'm sure there are a lot more such challenges which you would have also faced. So could you throw some light around that, Omkar?
Yeah, absolutely, Bharat. So basically, when the customers start their journey of modernizing their applications, right, and they eventually make it to hybrid or multi-cloud, as we discussed, right? And in this, what happens is basically because of Kubernetes and GKE and things like that, right? The environment has become so easy to spin up that you now have a sprawl of these environments happening all across you, right? It is very easy and cost effective to spin it up. because the cloud providers are giving you that management layer, right? So all of a sudden you have all these clusters, and it's becoming more and more difficult to keep the consistency and also to manage them with a single pane of glass.
Got it.
So that's the number one thing. So let me break it down. So for example, you start your journey of containerizing those apps, right? Number one challenge you get is how do you containerize them? So you've got to have the application, developers time and efforts to go into it. And then the number two is, as you're doing it and you have data, requirements, compliance and regulatory requirements of keeping that data within a certain locality, maybe also for latency requirements, right? So now you have decided that your application should be on premise or with Google Cloud or any other cloud providers, right? So all of a sudden you have to maintain policies, right? You have to maintain, you have to do service mesh along with service management. And along with that, as you're modernizing your app, you want to have the observability of that apps, right? You want to maintain the SLOs and the user journeys and make sure you are able to assess all of that. And as you go into this multi-cloud environment, it becomes more and more difficult because each cloud provider will have its own kind of set of tools, processes. So that's the number one challenge I see. The other thing is bringing people on. If you've got a new hire, so learning multi-cloud is very difficult, and the process is very difficult, right? So your infrastructure team or your SRE team or your platform, your DevOps team, who are actually meant to be doing a day in, operations, managing applications, securing them, are rather involved in managing the cloud, different processes in place. So it becomes a very difficult journey. And a lot of challenges come across.
Noted. So, in your opinion, see, I think, like you clearly called out, right, there is no single pane of glass for management, right, and then managing the overhead of all these different, workloads becomes a big challenge in this, right? So, of course, so what would you expect a solution for this to have, right? If there is like one single one-stop solution for managing this multi-cloud and hybrid kind of a thing, so what are your expectations out of a solution, which would be basically able to mitigate all these challenges?
So if you see like enterprises or customers who are growing their platform or their landscape to this different as if whether it be an hybrid or a multi-cloud environment, all they care for is they want more networking, storage and compute requirements, right? But what they want is a single pane of glass to manage them, and they want a consistent behavior. And at the same time, they want to make most of their application, because application is something that they care for. And that's their basically that's where the users that's where they bring the competitive edge by making sure their users are happy with their platforms, right? So I think a simplified management utility and a consistent journey across platforms and a user-friendly application-driven modernization is something that they look for in a solution.
So I think this gets clubbed with all the factors, right? The policy management, operation management, let's say application management, service management, container, as well as a level of security, and for ease of integrating across these workloads. I think these are the key challenges which, if addressed, will definitely help in having a better multi-cloud or hybrid cloud strategy, right? So that brings us to the topic of today, right? So Suhan, if you could walk us through what exactly is Anthos, which is a very unique offering by Google Cloud, and how this comes together as a solution for all the challenges which Omkar kind of came up, and also what is so unique about Anthos, based on your experience in solutioning these typical challenges which Omkar mentioned for our clients.
Definitely. I'll break this into multiple portions, into multiple journeys, right? Now, imagine for an enterprise who started the journey in on-premises, right? So they would start probably with an Oracle OCI, right? They start their Kubernetes journey, they've started OCI. Now, the thing is, they would want to have this happening. They want to have this environment in on-premises, but also get the best of the cloud, like Omkar mentioned. They want to have a number of. They would not be restricted by the infra. They don't. They want to use the new APIs which are in the cloud, so on and so forth, or all the services, the new AI technologies, right? Now, how can I bridge both of these, right? That is where Anthos plays a key role. Now, Anthos, like Omkar very rightly put, a single pane of glass. I go to Anthos, I deploy, I select what application I want, I select which goes to on-premises, what goes to GKE, and all of these from a single pane of glass, right? Now, this is a key role. This is a key advantage we have seen a lot of our healthcare and BFSI customers taking up, right? For example, we have seen customers looking at KYC, and the application runs on premises, whereas the AI technology comes from Google, right? So that is how they're bridging this, and how do they manage this is Anthos, right? Anthos plays that key role where they can connect all this whole portion. The second portion, now, if you're a digital native company, right, and you have your customers located in multiple places in the globe, right? How do you see to that each customer gets a unique experience because you have built applications specific to that region, but also from an operational perspective, you have the same application flowing in, going and deployed into each of this location, right? That is where Anthos plays a key role, right? In Anthos, you can have multiple clusters, and each of them can have the similar application. You can have a single GitOps structure, such a way that as and when you deploy your application in one repo, it kinds of goes into all of these, spreads into each of these clusters, and each of them get the lower latency in their place, right? Because it also comes with ACM, it comes with proximity location, so on and so forth. So you have something called MCI there, multi-cluster ingress, right? So if you are from Singapore, you go to Singapore data center. If you come from US, you go to the US data center. You're from India data center. But the application is the infra and the application is deployed from the same repo. That is from MCI, right? From an operation perspective, we just spoke about the DevOps, right? From an operation perspective, for an SRE, right? He wants to see that infra which is Kubernetes in on-premises. I'm talking about a mix of enterprise here. Now, again, I'll come back to the enterprise where they have these clusters in multiple locations, but the DevSecOps wants a similar policy in all of these infrastructure. How can he do that, right? That's where Anthos, as I said, Anthos has this ACM, which is a GitOps kind of structure. You put all your policy configurations there, and it sees to that it kind of spreads into all of these clusters again, right? So what is Anthos? One, in the first story, when I say enterprise and hybrid, the deployment happens from a single plane, number one. Number two, if you're looking from a multi-cloud, from a DN perspective, you're getting MCI, which is multi-cluster ingress, right? So that you go to the nearest region where this application lies. If one of the region goes down, the network is traffic to the other one. The third portion we covered is from the ACM perspective, right? ACM, as I said, for a DevSecOps perspective, he's using this for policy controlling of the policy across all of these infrastructure, right? And it is very less effort. He doesn't have to go to each of this cluster. What happens today, right? You can rather use when you're using, and our customer starts using Anthos, they feel their operational workload goes down, the effectiveness goes up, right? So we have just kind of highlighted three major portions, but all of these are happening in from a single plane of glass again, right? So that's a kind of huge bonus. People, and that's why a lot of our BFSI healthcare and customers are starting towards Anthos today.
Not it. So basically, if I were to summarize, it's a software-based solution for the challenges which we spoke about earlier, and it's a combination of your on-prem Google Kubernetes engine, right? Which is like the main orchestrator for your modernized architecture, which has microservices and containers. Then there is a whole config manager, which is what I believe you were calling it as ACM, right? So which helps you deploy all these policies which Omkar was talking about, irrespective of whether your workloads are on premises, in your data centers, or on a public cloud. And then there is a clouds, mesh, which comes in, and also combined with the Google's unique offering, which is a marketplace where a lot of solutions are available, which can be used as a plug and play solutions.
Agreed. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Sorry, go ahead.
I think one of the things we also want to add here is the way Anthos works across all cloud, right? I think Omkar just mentioned. I just want to highlight that aspect as well, right? Now, Anthos is been used not only from I mentioned only on-prem and GCP, right? But it's not like that. It's you can use your Kubernetes from OCI, Oracle. You can use it from AWS, Azure, on-premises, again in on-premise multiple flavors, VMware, Oracle, or I think, as when we go for the journey, will continue, right? So Anthos is able to pull all of them together, and all of their lives becomes easy.
Noted. I've also heard about a feature called as Anthous Autopilot. Could you throw some light around that, Suhan or Omkar, anyone, right? Where I think a lot of work, once the whole deployment and the implementation is done, a lot of things are automated where you don't have to really worry about your workloads. And a lot of these, anytime there's a failure, they're automatically, brought up. And again, it kind of works how an autopilot works for an aircraft.
Yes. So Autopilot is something which works on the GKE plane as of now. So what it does is basically, if you do not have a DevOps, so the idea is when Kubernetes came in, somebody had to see to that entire the management of the cluster has to be taken care by a DevOps person, right? Now, can that responsibility be absorbed by Google SRE itself in such a way that I can only focus on deploying it there, and based on my consumption, can I auto scale or provide a right set of infrastructure is where Autopilot comes in, right? So there are two flavors, standard and Autopilot. Standard is where you maintain the clusters. If you want to have a higher degree of flexibility, higher degree of control, you would go with the standard. But if you are somebody who's focused on getting the application there, giving your value to your customer as early as possible, then you start focusing on Autopilot, because the only thing you have to do is deploy it there, and then the SREs of Google will take care of how it scales, what infra to be provided, when to shut it down, all of that.
Awesome, great. I think that gives us sets the context for us to understand. We've covered what is multi-cloud, why hybrid and multi-cloud is required, and how Anthos can come in and help you do most of your management of your infrastructure part of it, using this particular unique solution, right? So that your manpower, your teams can focus more on, building more features to your applications rather than worrying about managing the workloads. I think that's the main problem which Anthos is solving here, right?
Okay. One other thing, I think you're also looking, I think I remember we talking about this, right? We also talked about, is this so unique? Is it Anthos is done only from this AWS? I mean, why is Anthos done by Google, right? The matter of fact, everybody has their own flavor of Anthos, right? But the only key differentiator and why we are speaking of Anthos and not the other offerings is because this is the only layer which is software defined, right? That means to say, starting this journey, it's very easy, right? If you look at other CSPs, their Anthos flavor starts with you getting the hardware setup, which is from the CSP itself, setting it up, which adheres to that CSP. There's a lot of connectivity between that. So there's a lot of dependency on the CSP itself. Here, that's not the case. You just go to the console, you set up the Anthos, your journey starts from that day one.
Awesome.
Right, and the tooling is also a lot, open. Like there is open source everywhere, right? Like from in Service Mesh, we are using Istio and things like that. So there is no vendor lock-in as such.
Absolutely.
And, so you can run anywhere, and Anthos will make sure that the app modernization is being done, and you are making the most out of it.
Awesome, great. All right, so that brings us to our next section we wanted to cover as a part of this webinar, right? So now that we know what's hybrid cloud, what's Anthos, so what are the coming to the best practices that we follow while implementing Anthos, right? So that brings us to the first question, like, what kind of skill sets are required in addition to what you already have, right? I'm sure almost everybody who has an application and it's deployed on cloud or on-prem have their own DevOps teams or their own implementation teams or their own SRE teams, right? So now if they were to go ahead and adopt Anthos, which becomes like their single control panel, what kind of skill set would be required, which the organizations are required to have in order to implement, adopt this and then run this, Omkar?
Perfect. I think that's a really good question, and that's where Anthos really nails the problem. Basically, the issue was that you've got all these different teams working on different methodologies, right? Like a SRE is meant to do observability, and a DevOps is meant to do break the organization silos and all that. But what in the hybrid or the multi-cloud environment, they are being challenged for different issues, and where Anthos comes is it is giving benefits to all of these people. So everybody has something or the other. Let's start with the developer, right? The app developer. So we've got in Anthos Knative or Cloud Run for Anthos. So it is giving a consistent behavior, and moreover, with these tools, the daily operational work or the development work that they are doing is helping them, scale faster, develop faster, and things like that, right? For an SRE engineer, we have service mesh that they always used, right? And with STO, so they don't have to upskill or anything. They can use their existing knowledge, build on it, and concentrate on building the observability to make sure that meet their SLOs, and and make sure that the skill sets that they already have are being leveraged across the environments, right? And then you've got the infrastructure operators, right? So the infrastructure operators are the masters of Kubernetes. They know how to spin up environments, how to do capacity management and things like that. So that again is been given to them by Anthos, because we have like tools with Anthos GK. They can have like we defined. They can have Anthos on-prem, Anthos on VMware. Like on-prem, you have Anthos on VMware and Anthos on bare metal. Then you've got Anthos on Google Cloud. Then you've got AWS, Azure, and so with all these environments, and then you've got your own attached cluster, so you can attach your own version of Kubernetes to Anthos. So with the infrastructure guys, they can do the right capacity management, the right, they can use the tools that they are used to, and the infrastructure the way they want, right? So I think it's giving it's basically taken everybody's buy-in and made sure everybody is happy, and they can leverage their existing skills.
Awesome. So if I were to rephrase this on the skill set, I think that answers it bang on, right? So if we were to talk about the value add that Anthos is going to bring in the space of application modernization, irrespective of where the customers or the organizations are at this point of time, whether they're still in the process of modernizing their legacy applications, or they are building their cloud native or modern applications which do not have a monolithic approach, which include microservices and containers, right? At this stage, how do you think what exactly is the value add for it from a business point of view, right? If I were to implement Anthos and if I were to manage all my workloads across on-prem and on cloud, how exactly is my business going to benefit from the implementation of Anthos?
Yeah, there are many benefits of implementation of Anthos, right? Right from modernization. I mean, if you are modernizing the apps, right, then it gives you an ability and flexibility to modernize anywhere. Wherever you are, Anthos will come there, right? So whether it's been on-premise, you want to do hybrid or multi, right? And you've got a unified management, right? So basically all Anthos provides is a single UI from where you can actually see all your clusters, all your workloads. You can do service mesh, ACM. All these features are available from a single point of view. You can have from a security point of view. We spoke about DevOps, SRE, and stuff, but about the new SecOps for them. To be able to provide the policies, the guardrails they want, right? As with security kind of approach, going into the public cloud, and things like that, so they can make sure that the security guardrails are in place. So that's a big win for them, right? And you don't have any vendor lock-in. So basically, if your application runs on public cloud, you still have an on-premise Kubernetes, you can then port it to Kubernetes, on-premise as well. So you've also, or if it's running on AWS, you can also run it on Google. You can run it anywhere you want. And so basically, there is subscription-based, billing and things like that. You can subscribe out. You have a consumption-based billing. So so that flexibility is also there. So I think that there are a lot of benefits that the customers are seeing. Especially we are seeing in areas where they want to migrate, but you are not entirely ready or still there, right? So you can leverage tools like Anthos, Migrate for Anthos, wherein it gives you a single no touch migration. Like basically, you can you have a monolithic app that you can convert it into a microservice, like a container, um, with the tool, right? So there, the kind of work that would go in that is being minimized by all these tools. So really, Anthos has given a holistic view of all the pain points, and it's a win. Like it gives a lot of benefits for everyone.
Awesome, awesome. So if I were to summarize this, Omkar, in a quick nutshell, right? So it gives the flexibility for our customers to modernize anywhere, right? It could be on premises or on cloud, which is the basic essence of the whole multi-cloud hybrid strategy. It gives a unified management platform, which in other words, we are calling it as a single pane of glass, right? It brings in all the security commands that need to be installed, policy management, etc., which eases the whole operations team and the infra management teams, brings in a lot of agility and portability, and also main importantly is it helps you avoid the vendor lock-in, which a lot of CSPs already have, right? So it is very agnostic of the underlying infrastructure, so you don't get locked in at any cost. And of course, there is an consistent experience across the workloads, irrespective of where they are hosted, and the lower TCOs, right? These are the few points which are the key benefits if we were to look at it. So that brings us to the next question, Suhan. So if I were a new customer and I have a couple of my workloads on premises and I've started exploring cloud, but I still run a lot of monolithic applications, and I want to adopt Anthos to boost my business and benefit from all these 6-7 points that we spoke about. So how would I start this journey? What are the prerequisites that are required for anyone to start their journey on Anthos?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we'll break this into 3 journeys for the customer. The customer one wants to move his legacy application to cloud, number one. Number two, he would also want to modernize. When he say modernize, probably he wants to containerize this application to cloud. That was probably second. The third is he wants to have his application running in both his dev UAT non-production in on-premises, his production in Kubernetes in one of the CSPs, right? Probably will, for this case, probably take Google and AWS. How does this happen? So the first portion, he wants to move his legacy application to GCP. That's, I think Omkar rightly mentioned that we have a tool inbuilt into Anthos, which will do this portion for us, right? So for that too, so how does it start? How does it do how can we do that? Is one, the single pane of glass currently is in Google, right? He would need a subscription to Google GCP, and that happens within 20-30 minutes, and you have this entire system up and running. And then the second portion is he has to choose the application he wants to move to GKE or any to containers. Basically, he can use Migrate for Anthos. It takes that application, makes it into a container, deploys it into GKE. Done. First journey completed. Second one, he wants to modernize his journey, move his monoliths. Some of the portion of his monoliths, he converts it into a microservice. That microservice is, he would prepare a CI/CD, which is all available in cloud across all the cloud premises or on premises, or probably he can use a Jenkins. Whatever he's comfortable with, put it into GKE, right? And then probably the last journey. Now he has his containered application, the older legacy application containerized in GKE. He has a newer microservice application also in GKE. Now from there he can just choose. This legacy application is part of in production. I would probably want this in AWS. I have another new application which is also containerized. All the non-productionized, I'll keep it in on-premises Kubernetes, which is what is a Kubernetes cluster, and then Kubernetes for on-prem, and then we move and we probably retain some of the production system in GCP itself, probably because they want to use some of the data warehousing solutions, probably they want to use some AI services as part of the application. So the only prerequisite we expect here is one, have a GCP subscription. Number two is to switch on the Anthos API, right? Then rest of the things are just there. There's multiple tutorials for us to even to get used to all of these, but the best part is none of these are really heavy on operations, right? They're just more of clicks and buttons on the console, right? But if you're asking from an on-premises to me to set up this on-premises, then we would have to understand the network structure. Do you have firewalls and all of that aspect? But that is not a huge. Again, that is not a Anthos thing. It is more of an operation of what you personally follow, and that has to be allowed to communicate with the Anthos cluster.
Sure.
Yeah, these are few high-level prerequisites we want to share.
Definitely. Thanks for those inputs, Suhan. So that brings us to the last section, which is the case studies part of it, right? So we have seen a lot of adoption of Anthos happening worldwide ever since it was launched by Google. We ourselves at Niveus have got a chance to do a lot of hands-on on this, and even implement this for a couple of our customers, where some of them are ongoing, some of them POCs are completed. A lot of work has been done around this space, and we are already able to see these benefits which we just spoke about, right? So Omkar, do you want to throw some light on a couple of case studies that we are working on?
Yeah, sure. So basically, as you mentioned, right, there are a lot of use cases and customers are really excited to use this, right? There are various use cases we are seeing as customers are adopting it. Number one, I think, where you want to migrate and at the same time you want to modernize. Because you don't want to migrate and just get, run as it is. You don't want to do lift and shift, right? But you want to migrate and modernize. So that's where Anthos really is a game changer for a lot of our some of our customers who are having legacy applications and things like that, right? So that's one of the portions. And basically, they get this ability to re-platform their legacy apps and still use these features that Anthos provides with service mesh and all these other policy guardrails that work very well with Anthos and with Migrate for Anthos and all this tooling around it, right? The second, I think, is re-platforming, right? So for example, if you already have Kubernetes and your people or your resources are well versed with GKE and and all these platforms, so then you can leverage, you can use Anthos as a tool and make sure there is consistency and a lot of benefits come out of it, right? So that's the re-platforming part that it's coming up. And I think leveraging data and services on-prem, like a lot of customers, I think Suhan brought it up previously, like a lot of customers have data residing on their on-prem, right? Or requirement where, they have data on-prem, but they have to utilize services in Google Cloud and things like that. So that's where, service management, the Anthos service management and all these features are really helping them out. Okay. And I think even the fourth one is the GitOps part, right? Comfortably managing the environment with automated and as an immutable environment and infrastructure, because as you are growing and as your teams are growing, right, changes happen every day and everywhere. So how do you limit it? How do you make sure your environment is not having a lot of drifts? You don't want to lose a lot of time just troubleshooting and looking into logs. So that's where GitOps kind of deployments are really helping out.
Okay.
So that's the adoption.
Modernization.
Yeah.
App modernization, re-platforming, GitOps, and also to leverage the data aspects of it when you have workloads deployed across is where are some of the use cases what you have been working on. So on any other use cases come to your mind while we're speaking about how Anthos is playing a key role in boosting the businesses?
Yeah, I think I want to highlight, as Omkar mentioned, right, I think the data platform is something we see there's a lot of traction because I think he mentioned about on-premises, but we're also looking at a lot of traction from other CSEs as well. So we are taking data from their cloud buckets and taking and pulling it into our data warehouses, all via Anthos, right? So that is a key role we see. Another aspect we also see rising in demand is Anthos for bare metal, right? So now with Anthos, where bare metal, people don't have to pay up the taxes which they have to pay for other CSVs otherwise. Now they have their own premises. They just have to take care of the bare metal portion, and a lot of them are starting to get the best of cloud and the bare metal, right? So you get higher performance from bare metal and the lower operation, the ease of doing this entire application modernization, the infrastructure management, and data modernization from cloud. So I think those are services where there's a lot of need. I'm sure that coming years, there's a lot of traction there. Why coming years? Because, and it's not very far, right? I'm sure 2022 would be a great year for Anthos, right? I think I remember last 2 years back when we spoke about Kubernetes, people were not really sure why would somebody move it. But 2020, everybody's on Kubernetes. 2021, we are just we are already, I can't say what we are right. Everybody's on Kubernetes now. And Anthos is something very similar, right? Suddenly, as Omkar started this discussion talking about sprawls, right? We are all talking about sprawls. We have seen customers all sprawl. I mean, this is not the developer, this is the organization talking about sprawls, right? They have all sort of accesses. The developers have created all clusters. The management of this is getting tougher, and they have to see to the communication between across cloud is to be easier. Managing this cloud ecosystem is also going to be a challenge. Now, Anthos is going to be that console where they can just focus on deploying of this workload and managing this workload, right? And not really worry about where is this noise really coming from. So that's where I see a lot of traction, a lot of our customers. Governance is going to be a key for Anthos as well.
Absolutely. I think the unfortunate pandemic has made a lot of organizations realize that the question is no longer should I adopt cloud or multi-cloud, right? This question is how quickly can I do it so that I am protected from all the things that can happen in the future, depending on how you spend the last 2 years, and how do I get the right set of skilled folks and right set of solutions like Anthos to manage this in a much more easier way. Like you rightly called out a couple of years ago, Kubernetes was something which was still in the exploratory mode, and pretty much everyone has now started to modernize their applications and infrastructure, and tools like Anthos or solutions like Anthos are the key game changers in this whole multi-cloud strategy. I think we've tried and covered most of the points so far on why aspect of it, what is Anthos, what are the best practices, and a couple of case studies. So I think we are even coming to an end of the 45-minute schedule that we had. So before we open it out for questions from our audience today in this webinar, final closing remarks from you, Omkar.
Yeah, I mean, Anthos, if you look at it, is a great application modernization tool, right? And I think the benefits that we all will reap out of it is, it's a flawless nature of working across environments. That's number one. And then it's multi-purpose use, right? Right from modernizing the apps, from converting your monolithic apps to containers and deploying it on GKE, or Anthos on Prem, or with VMware. It works very flawlessly, like with VMware. So it has APIs that it can call to VMware and provision your Kubernetes cluster. Then you have bare metal, as Suhan mentioned. So all of that, and then policy management with ACM. And you've got cloud logging and cloud monitoring. The kind of logging that Google Cloud provides is amazing. And for the application deployment as well, right, as we mentioned, and for service mesh. So I think summing it up, I think it's a great tool for app modernization. Along with that, it comes across as a great tool because it leverages the infrastructure and it provides all the benefits. And also, just to add one more thing is, we have Anthos on for virtual machines as well in preview, right? So with that coming in, it has covered all of the infrastructure, because that's where your monolithic apps live, right? Virtual machines. So in case if you don't want to do it for any set of reason, because there are technical challenges, right, in modernizing the apps. If you cannot do it and still want to leverage the service mesh, and you want to shift it to Google Cloud and or any other cloud for that matter, then Anthos will be able to provide that. So with that feature in, I think Anthos is a great utility.
I think Anthos for VMs was the missing piece of the puzzle. I think with Google coming up with that, I think it kind of completes the whole puzzle, right, and makes the solution available pretty much for everyone.
Yeah,
so I think we have most probably tried and covered most of the points, Omkar. So Suhan, any punchline from your end to close this?
Yeah. So I think I would rather want to highlight this portion, right? When people started, when found VMs managing VMs heavy, they started looking at Kubernetes because it better manages the resources, right? And that's where Dockerization and everything comes in. And people started Dockerizing, there were so many Dockers, so many containers, so many processes. You just didn't know who's talking to whom, right? And that's where they needed somebody to take care of them. That's where Kubernetes came in, right? Started as an open source, but now widely used across all CSPs. But then today you see there's so many clusters created now that we are coming back to the same problem. Now, how are you going to fix that problem, right? How are you going to see that I have so many services in AWS, X number of services in Azure, all my Windows machine work great in Azure, all my, some of my, I started out as AWS, my Windows machine are Azure. What do I choose, right? Again, I want to look at the best of what Google provides, all the Google services, searches in it. It is no more a choice. You don't have to choose one of them, right? You can just take all of the entire, that whole suite, the best of all of, right? And that's where Anthos comes in. So it's not about choice anymore, right? It's more about, you can get everything in with the suite. And again, this is pay as you go. It's not like a subscription and you have to pay a hefty amount and start it, right? You can just start out with Anthos, pay as you go, and if you enjoy it, you continue to do that. The second portion is, again, if not you, there's somebody who's going to do it. There's a lot of governance to be required. There's so many clusters already sprawling. Who's going to take care of the dirty job? And that's where Anthos brings it, right? Now, Anthos is not only about Kubernetes. They have lowered the limit. As Omkar mentioned, now the VMs will get into that race, right? So you don't even have to containerize anymore. You can just bring in your VM into that whole structure. Now you can see your VMs, clusters, your serverless solutions. You're getting a data warehouse as BigQuery Omni. So everybody, this is going to be a big game changer for all CSPs. It's not only for GK.
Great.
So this is something we feel in Niveus, and I'm hoping everybody will feel the same. Thank you.
So there is chat window for the audience here, so we can take a couple of questions. I know we've almost completed the 45 minutes. So I think we can take at least one or two questions. So if there are any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat, and we'll be more than happy to answer them. Yeah. So while we wait for the questions, I'd also like to bring this point, right? So the whole idea of having this webinar was to of course, understanding how this works and how it is implemented, and the technical aspects of it takes much more time. We could always have a detailed workshop if that is something you want to implement in your organization. So you can always reach out to the organizers, and would be more than happy to have those workshops conducted for you. Work along with your technical teams to assess your current ecosystem. How are your workloads distributed? What is it that you want to achieve? And how Anthos would, or any other solution would come there and help you do that, right? So while that is something we'd like to do, the idea was just to introduce you to this particular solution which is available, and how important it is to have multi-cloud and hybrid as a part of your whole digitization strategy. I know a lot of you guys joined slightly later, while we did speak about why the whole multi-cloud and hybrid is required in the first place, what are the challenges that are there, and how Anthos as a solution comes to mitigate these challenges, what are the kind of best practices to implement it, and also how we as a partner can come in and help you achieve your business goals with this technical solution. I think that was the essence of it. If we are able to put that particular seed in your in your heads, that this is something that's possible, and this is something which we are implementing for our clients. And if you have similar kind of plans or strategies, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'd be more than happy to take it forward. All right, I don't see any questions. If we don't really have any questions, I think then we can wind up. It was a great session, and thanks a lot, Omkar and Suhan, for your time. I think we did discuss quite a few important topics, and a couple of these questions were also that I had in my mind. How exactly can we achieve this? So thanks for clarifying that. I hope the audience also enjoyed discussing these topics and understanding as much as we did talking about it. So once again, thanks a lot for your time, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Bharath.
Cheers.
Thank you all.